Meghan Markle's characters struggle to balance her legal career while also caring for an unemployed immigrant.
Calling out Meghan for the B word that she is.
You probably think you've seen Meghan Markle humiliated before. Tabloids, family feuds, royal walkouts, PR flops. But nothing prepared the world for what happened next. Because in under 10 seconds, one man with a microphone, a smirk, and a perfectly timed punchline managed to do what years of scandal couldn't. He shattered her carefully curated public image on live television.
Let's not applaud.
No, nobody wants these two.
It wasn't a palace insider. It wasn't a royal biographer. It wasn't even Piers Morgan. It was Colin Jost. Yes, the Saturday Night Live guy. And his joke? Brutal. Delivered during a weekend update segment, it didn't just land, it detonated. With one line, he reduced the Duchess of Sussex to what she feared most: a political wannabe without credentials, a punchline in her own story, and, worst of all, a mini Brigitte Macron.
Meghan has been brutally roasted on Saturday Night Live.
Britain demands in return is that we keep these two.
Not the glamorous kind, the Queen of Slap. And here's the twist. The fallout didn't stay confined to late-night laughter. This wasn't just another roast. It turned into a full-blown international meltdown, one that exposed Meghan's darkest insecurities, ignited chaos in 2 continents, and triggered a behind-the-scenes implosion so volatile, even NBC insiders were left speechless. But to understand how this single joke spiraled into a career-crushing scandal, we need to go back, because the cracks in Meghan's image didn't start at Studio 8H. They've been forming for years.
He is going to rock Meghan Markle's world. Meghan Markle is going to be humbled very quickly.
It's some unemployed dude who still lives with his grandma.
President Trump also announced a new trade deal with the UK.
Hidden behind podcast microphones, choreographed charity visits, and those relentless pastel-filtered PR photos. And if you think this is where the story ends, you're wrong. It's where it explodes. For years, Meghan Markle has straddled 2 worlds: the royal expat draped in Dior and the American social justice crusader wrapped in buzzwords. To her supporters, she's a modern-day trailblazer challenging outdated institutions. To her critics, she's a calculated image builder more obsessed with optics than substance. But one thing was always true. Until now, Meghan controlled the narrative. Whether it was a viral interview with Oprah or a Netflix docuseries that blurred memoir and marketing, every move was managed, polished, and branded to perfection. That's what made the SNL jab so dangerous. It came from outside her fortress, unscripted and raw.
There's no way President Trump would accept that deal. He's called Meghan Markle nasty and says he feels sorry for Prince Harry.
When Colin Jost deadpanned, what the world really needs right now is a mini Brigitte Macron with a royal title and no clue how politics work. It wasn't just a dig. It was a scalpel slicing through Meghan's fantasy of global influence. And the audience? They laughed, not nervously, not politely, but loudly. And just like that, Meghan wasn't in on the joke. She was the joke. According to multiple insiders, her fury was immediate and uncontainable. Her team flooded NBC with complaints. Demands were made. Words like xenophobia and defamation were thrown around. But here's the part that stung. NBC didn't back down. In fact, some say they were done babysitting her brand. Meghan's meltdown only confirmed what the public was starting to suspect, that beneath the motivational quotes and podcast platitudes was someone who couldn't take the slightest criticism without spiraling into chaos.
Seems to be one of the more vindictive, sort of nasty figures in public.
More troubles for poor Meghan. She's been threatened with a $10 million lawsuit after a woman suffered catastrophic burns, allegedly.
And just when you think this can't possibly get more bizarre, enter Brigitte Macron. Because yes, the French First Lady caught wind of the comparison too. And if you're wondering how she reacted, let's just say things got physical. According to whispers from inside the Élysée Palace, Brigitte reportedly stormed into her husband's office after the episode aired, outraged at being likened to Meghan Markle. Aides say she may have even slapped French President Emmanuel Macron in a moment of sheer indignation. While the palace officially denied any slap took place, multiple French journalists insist something dramatic definitely went down. And if the First Lady of France is angry to be mentioned in the same breath as Meghan, what does that say about Meghan's image? Because this wasn't just about a comedy show anymore. This was about respect, credibility, influence, or the lack thereof. Meghan's attempt to position herself as America's Brigitte, polished, powerful, politically savvy, was now in shambles. Instead of being embraced by global figures, she was being mocked by them. And if you think the fallout stopped there, keep watching. Because Meghan didn't just lose the joke, she lost the room, the press, the fans, and slowly even the Hollywood elite.
We want privacy! We want privacy!
Let's make a show.
What Meghan failed to understand, what so many celebrities before her also forget, is that satire doesn't play by palace rules. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't issue apologies. And when Saturday Night Live decided to use Meghan as their punchline, they weren't just poking fun, they were responding to a growing sentiment that she's become impossible to take seriously. What followed that single weekend update segment was more than a PR stumble. It was a detonation that revealed a stunning lack of self-awareness, a crumbling Hollywood facade, and an unraveling narrative that even her most loyal allies couldn't defend anymore. According to insiders, Meghan's team launched into immediate damage control, calling NBC executives in a frenzy, labeling the joke as xenophobic and gendered harassment, and demanding it be scrubbed from reruns and online clips. But what she didn't count on, NBC was done playing nice. One senior executive reportedly said, "She's not royalty here, she's just another celebrity with a lawyer on speed dial." And that's when it became clear.
Herself and who she actually is are quite different. I don't look at Meghan as someone who I would get business advice from.
To write a resume, I don't know what I would call myself.
If she doesn't know, how are we supposed to?
And also
highly incongruous, and she is living in La La Land. Look, I couldn't even watch all of this interview.
Meghan wasn't just losing control of the narrative, she was losing the room. Behind closed doors, the networks were growing tired of the drama. They didn't see a dignified stateswoman. They saw an image-obsessed brand spiraling into self-parody. And here's where it gets worse. Not only did NBC refuse to apologize, but reports surfaced that Meghan turned on her own team, blaming her staff for not flagging the joke ahead of time. Yes, she genuinely believed Saturday Night Live, a show built on mocking public figures, should have run its script by her PR reps before airing. The entitlement was staggering, but more than that, it exposed just how fragile the Markle machine really was. Multiple sources claim Meghan accused her advisors of failing to protect her image, allegedly screaming at one assistant, "This was preventable. You should have warned me." But as one Netflix producer put it, if you're a global leader, you don't melt down over a comedy bit. The contrast was sharp. While real political figures face daily scrutiny with resilience, Meghan's entire public apparatus collapsed because of a two-line joke. And across the Atlantic, the ripple effects were just beginning. French First Lady Brigitte Macron's team reportedly reached out to clarify she had no personal or professional association with the Duchess of Sussex. In fact, they wanted her name removed from Meghan's podcast media kit altogether. One French journalist remarked, "It's the first time in years I've seen the Élysée issue a denial over a comedy sketch." But even more damning was what happened on social media.
Vickers, who revealed the late Queen was so fearful of Harry and Meghan that she wouldn't want to be alone.
I think that Harry is a damaged person, and damaged people cause damage. He has no understanding of how to, from his family life, and neither does
the Queen. Always used to make sure that she had somebody with her.
TikTok exploded with parody clips. Twitter was flooded with memes mocking Meghan as Mini Macron, a nickname that now carried the weight of satire, scorn, and failure. The digital backlash was relentless. Within hours, users were impersonating Meghan's voice in fake press conferences, staging mock political rallies where she demanded respect while mispronouncing global leaders' names. One viral video even advertised a fake perfume called Mini by Meghan, complete with a tagline that read, "Smells like entitlement." And while her team tried desperately to spin the narrative into one of misogyny and American media bias, even liberal outlets refused to bite. Vanity Fair, usually sympathetic to Meghan, ran a piece titled, "When you become the joke, you've lost the room."
Those two, for the reasons that we've been talking about, that they might be taking photographs or, I don't know, recording or anything they might be doing.
Harry is speaking his truth, which is that he's a very dejected and traumatized human being. And Meghan is projecting her truth. She knows that her brand has to run on positivity and optimism.
Meanwhile, polls began trickling in. A Morning Consult survey showed that over 60% of Americans thought the SNL roast was accurate and overdue. That number spiked to nearly 80% in the United Kingdom. Even The Guardian, a paper that once ran glowing coverage of Meghan's humanitarian work, opted for silence. And here's where the real damage begins. Not from the punchline itself, but from Meghan's reaction. Because what SNL exposed wasn't just a brand vulnerability, it was a fundamental disconnect between how Meghan sees herself and how the public actually sees her. In her mind, she's Eleanor Roosevelt meets Michelle Obama. To the rest of us, she's the Instagram version of politics, filtered, performative, and allergic to criticism. And the deeper we go, the more unhinged it gets. Here's where the illusion truly begins to collapse. Because while Meghan was busy demanding apologies from late-night comedy writers, the real damage was happening quietly behind the scenes, and it was coming from inside Hollywood. According to multiple studio sources, Meghan's post-SNL tantrum triggered a chilling effect among producers, agents, and A-list collaborators. One Netflix executive reportedly told The Hollywood Reporter, "We can't keep babysitting her brand." Another insider confirmed that a Zoom meeting with Meghan was abruptly canceled by a prominent showrunner after she demanded a rewritten pitch that portrayed her as a misunderstood global icon.
On anybody's marriage, but you can't see two interviews back to back like this and wonder that something behind the scenes isn't going on.
Thanks to another amazing friend who we've never met, but who believes in us and wants to help.
Angela, it's almost that meme of how
It's like she wants to be treated like Mandela and marketed like Kim Kardashian, the source said. But she can't take a joke, and that contradiction is at the heart of this unraveling. Meghan wants power, but not scrutiny. She wants admiration, but not accountability. She craves relevance, but only on her terms. Unfortunately for her, that's not how any of this works, especially not in Hollywood, where image is everything, and her image is now radioactive. But it's not just studio politics that are shifting. Even her once loyal inner circle is retreating. Oprah Winfrey, silent. Tyler Perry, ghosted. Serena Williams, MIA. Publicly, these stars remain polite. Privately, insiders say they're done associating with the drama. "It's not worth the PR risk anymore," one publicist explained. "Every time Meghan opens her mouth, it becomes a firestorm." And that's not hyperbole. In the days following the SNL incident, Meghan's media team attempted to reframe her as a victim of American misogyny and Eurocentric elitism. But no one was buying it. Not Vanity Fair, not The Atlantic, not even her usual defenders at MSNBC.
really struggling with where he's at and where he fits in.
Some sort of therapist to help him with whatever issues he's going through, because I don't think Meghan's going to help him. She's in her complete own world.
One scathing op-ed in the Daily Beast summarized it perfectly. "You can't demand to be taken seriously as a future world leader and then break down over a punchline. That's not courage, that's ego." And if that wasn't damning enough, the digital world turned Meghan's crisis into pure comedy. Satirical accounts staged mock UN speeches where Meghan proposed international policies based on her favorite podcast episodes. YouTube channels launched parody ads for fictional products like Markle brand mindfulness mugs, guaranteed to shatter under pressure. Even French television aired a late-night panel mocking the slap heard round the world, with actors playing both Brigitte Macron and Meghan Markle in a bizarre soap opera-style reenactment. One sketch ended with Brigitte Macron muttering, "At least I didn't marry into this circus." Brutal, but effective. And then came the real-world consequences.
So funny too that you keep saying Meghan Markle. You know I'm Sussex now. You have kids and you go, no, I share my name with my children. Yes. And that feels so, I didn't know how meaningful it would be to me, but it just...
Meghan's political aspirations, once whispered about in DNC circles and teased by Hollywood agents, began to evaporate. One senior staffer reportedly told a Capitol Hill reporter if she ever thought she was going to run for office, this ended that fantasy. And it's easy to see why. Meghan's meltdown revealed more than just bad optics. It exposed a complete inability to deal with dissent. When faced with satire, she didn't respond with humor, humility, or even silence. She responded with rage, entitlement, and demands. That's not how leaders act. That's how divas spiral. Her critics aren't calling her unqualified because she's a woman or because she left the royal family. They're calling her unqualified because her idea of diplomacy is staging a photo op, launching a podcast about trauma, and then suing anyone who doesn't clap loudly enough. And that's not just a bad look. That's political kryptonite. The SNL joke didn't end her career. Her inability to laugh at it did. And if you think we've hit the bottom, just wait. Because what came next made everything else look tame. Here's where the story goes from embarrassing to catastrophic.
And Markle, and I love it because I love more of these networks and comedy shows calling out Meghan for the B word that she is, because I genuinely believe this. Sweet. I love it. I love it. Now, yeah, because that's what she does. She's been giving the middle finger to the royal family forever. And to see Saturday Night Live, NBC, just calling it for what it is.
Because as Meghan scrambled to salvage her image, the very institutions she once leaned on began to pull away, not out of malice, but out of sheer exhaustion. Her Archewell Foundation, once heralded as a hub for compassion and community, quietly paused 2 major initiatives just days after the SNL scandal. One of them was a political mentorship program meant to empower young female leaders. The reason? Reputational risk. That's a direct quote from internal communications leaked to the press. Staff reportedly cited growing concerns that the foundation was being used more as a vanity project than a serious nonprofit. And donors? They're vanishing. Multiple philanthropic partners, including at least one corporate sponsor tied to Meghan's podcast, have reportedly paused financial commitments pending a reassessment of brand alignment. Translation, they don't want their money tied to a walking PR disaster. You could almost hear the collective industry sigh, she's not worth it anymore. But Meghan wasn't done spiraling, not even close. In what might be the most out-of-touch move yet, her team floated the idea of suing Saturday Night Live for damaging the reputation of a public servant in training. Let that sink in. Meghan Markle, a woman with 0 elected experience, no formal political training, and a Netflix deal for staged documentaries, considers herself a public servant and believes late-night comedy should treat her with diplomatic respect. Even her own advisors were stunned. One insider said the mood inside Archewell turned tense and bizarre, with staffers questioning whether Meghan was losing touch with reality. It's like she thinks she's untouchable, one source told The Wrap, but she doesn't understand. America doesn't do royalty. We do ratings, and right now she's only good for mockery. But perhaps the most damning moment came when Meghan reportedly tried to arrange a reconciliation phone call with Brigitte Macron, an olive branch disguised as a PR stunt. The French First Lady declined. Her team issued a chilly statement. Madame Macron has no comment on fictional comparisons. No mention of Meghan by name, no acknowledgement of the apology. It was a diplomatic slap without needing a hand. And then came the final humiliation. Harry, the one person who was supposed to stand by her, defend her, protect her from the headlines, stayed silent. According to insiders, Harry was deeply embarrassed by the entire ordeal. Friends from his military days reportedly reached out in private, expressing concern that he was being dragged into yet another circus. One former comrade put it bluntly, "This isn't what he signed up for. He looks miserable." At an event just days after the SNL fallout, Harry appeared alone, smiling weakly through gritted teeth. Observers noted that he seemed distant, distracted, and somewhat lost. And that might be the most tragic subplot of all, because while Meghan's brand crumbles under the weight of its own entitlement, Harry is stuck, watching, waiting, and slowly fading into irrelevance by association. And still, Meghan presses on, denying, spinning, demanding that the world take her seriously while refusing to take herself lightly. And that's not just a bad PR move, it's career suicide, but it's also the perfect transition, because after all this drama, there's one question left. What happens now? In the days and weeks following the SNL debacle, Meghan Markle didn't just face backlash, she faced something far worse: apathy. The headlines faded, the hashtags cooled, and what lingered wasn't outrage or support, it was mockery, a quiet collective eye roll from an audience that had simply grown tired. Even publications that once defended her started asking a different question: what does Meghan Markle actually do? The answer? Fewer and fewer people seem to care. Her Netflix project stalled, her podcast dissolved into silence. Her foundation, Archewell, began to look more like a placeholder than a powerhouse. Industry insiders stopped describing her as polarizing and started labeling her what no public figure ever wants to be: boring. The woman who once dominated headlines with every outfit, every quote, every veiled swipe at the royal family was now reduced to background noise. A meme, a punchline, a symbol of what happens when image outpaces substance. And the cruelest twist? The very people she tried to emulate, Brigitte Macron, Michelle Obama, even the late Princess Diana, never had to beg for relevance. They earned it through work, through humility, through resilience. Meghan, meanwhile, tried to manufacture it, and it crumbled on live TV. But here's the real takeaway. The SNL joke didn't destroy Meghan Markle. It exposed her. It peeled back the glossy layers of palace drama and pastel-toned kitchen sets and revealed what many had suspected all along, that the Empress had no clothes, only PR consultants. For all the talk of empowerment, Meghan's reaction proved she still sees criticism as betrayal and satire as slander. And in a media ecosystem that thrives on transparency, that's a fatal flaw, because if you want to play in the political arena, you have to take the hits, you have to laugh at yourself, you have to endure the roast without torching the kitchen. Meghan couldn't do that, and in doing so, she didn't just embarrass herself, she alienated the very audience she once captivated. Meanwhile, Brigitte Macron continues to do her job, unbothered and unshaken, offering a painful contrast that no Netflix edit can soften. Meghan wanted to be admired, respected, even feared. What she got instead was a cold lesson in cultural relevance. If you can't handle a joke, you're not ready for the world stage. And maybe, just maybe, it's time Meghan stopped trying to be a queen or a president and started asking a much simpler question: what do I actually stand for?